The first thing I want to ask for your thoughts, your prayers, and your support for everyone involved in this incident. Those who were injured and their loved ones, those who did not survive their injuries and their loved ones, but also the officers, the fire department personnel, and all first responders and their families. It's always tragic when someone loses their life. That's why it's incumbent on us as a law enforcement agency to make sure we conduct the most thorough investigation possible, to get through all the details we can to paint a clear picture of exactly what happened. As we said before, our major case unit is investigating, our internal affairs unit is investigating, and the Tarrant County District Attorney's Office will be investigating as well and referring this to a grand jury for review. I'll be happy to answer any questions at this time. If there's anything specifically about the arson investigator, we also have my friend Chief Davis here to help with those questions.
Chief, have ballistics confirmed to this point who shot whom in its entirety in this investigation, including Minter and Smith and the other two victims who were shot?
Not yet. That will be part of the investigation. We anticipate the ballistics to be an important piece of evidence. I do want to reiterate on that question what you've already heard said and what you've seen on the video. We're asking for help. We're asking for anyone who may have witnessed this, maybe someone who has video on a cell phone or maybe a door camera. Please contact us. It's very important for us to be able to review that information as well.
And the reason I guess I asked that question is because of things that we hear from the community that question if Smith and Minter were the only two shot by Fort Worth police. Do we know that for sure?
No, sir. That's why we are waiting for those ballistic results. Once we know, we will let you know.
Chief, at this point, does it look like, from what you've seen, that this was a justified use of deadly force?
You know what I mentioned earlier about the thoroughness of the investigation. There was a time where we wouldn't release any information until we were at the conclusion because there's a lot to look at. But we know now we need to be transparent. We need to share with the community and show what we do have. We want to make sure we do that complete investigation before we make any ruling about anything. And we ask that the community allow us the time we need to make sure we have that investigation completed before we come out with a ruling on the shooting.
Chief, have you spoken with either of the families of Mr. Minter or Mr. Smith?
I have not.
Do you plan to?
We could at some point. I find sometimes reaching out to the family can be helpful. I find sometimes it seems more as intrusive. So we'll see how things go, and if that becomes an appropriate thing to do, then I'd be more than willing to do so.
Well, we don't know, or you're trying to still figure out before the arson investigator and your officers show up why they were.
No, what we do know,
all of that?
what sparked the officer's response or the fight to begin
No,
with.
the fight going on.
That is correct. We do not know that yet, and that's why we're asking for help.
Do you know if this is going to be a teamwork thing that y'all are going to have for future 4th of July and New Year's and holidays like that?
It's actually something we have done multiple years. We have a great working relationship with the Fort Worth Fire Department. There are multiple things that we partner on together. This could be something we continue to do going forward, but those are definitely conversations that Chief Davis and I will have.
With that teamwork that y'all done for several years, do y'all plan on more training with arson investigators and PD for responses like this, or is it you just rely on each department training for something like this separately?
No, we try to train together as often as possible, especially when it's a co-agency response such as that. And we are actually very actively involved in the training of the arson investigators specifically. But our training facility, we're both here at the same place. So we are able to train together. It's convenient, and there's definitely an opportunity anytime we have an incident to learn from it and to tailor training around what we learn from those incidents.
Chief, besides the two people died, how many injuries were in total on this incident?
We believe that other than the two that did not survive their injuries, we have three. Two were taken to the hospital with confirmed gunshot wounds. There was another gentleman on scene that we believe had a gunshot wound, but he was the one that left and did not identify himself. We're still trying to reach that gentleman, and if he's watching, we ask that he please contact us. We'd like to speak with him as well.
And you don't know if they were shot by these two suspects?
We're trying to find out exactly where the shots came from.
Those three include the Hispanic male that you mentioned was shot, stabbed, and
Oh, correction, I'm sorry. That was the other individual, was the one that was shot, stabbed, and beaten. That would actually be for a total of 6. Thank you for the correction.
And just to clarify, so you said you don't know what sparked the altercation, so you're not sure why he was shot, stabbed, and beaten?
That's correct.
And what was the extent of those injuries? I mean, was it, I presume they weren't life-threatening?
I don't have any indication that they were life-threatening, but I don't know a lot about his medical status right now.
And
Has
Chief,
he been
correct me if I'm-
identified?
I'm sorry?
Has that victim been identified?
Yes, ma'am. Yes.
Correct me if I'm wrong, because we've only seen the video once. The very first person to fire, I believe, was one of your officers.
No.
Or was it the,
That's not accurate, actually. We're still trying to determine where that shot came from, but as the officers approach and they see the altercation occurring, you see the body camera footage from our forward police officer, and as he is approaching, you hear a gunshot, and that's when he picks up his pace and tries to go a little bit faster to determine what he needs to do to protect life.
and correct me if I'm wrong, did he announce himself?
He did announce himself. If you watch, first is a series of shots, and then he announces himself.
Okay. But did he announce himself and then fire, or did he fire and then announce himself?
Fire and then announce.
Protocol on that?
Whenever we have a situation like that, obviously we want to announce who we are whenever given the opportunity. What we're trying to determine here is if the case was such, from the information the officer had, that he saw an injured person, saw someone with a gun. As he's approaching, hears a gunshot and sees what appears to be a man pointing a gun at someone. The choice there is, do I give commands to take the chance of this person shooting and possibly killing someone? Or do I try to protect the person that's on the ground? And what we're going to try to do in their investigation is determine exactly what was going through the officer's mind and exactly what factors played into his decision.
Understood.
Chief, one of the things that made it a little harder to tell what was happening was the positioning of the cameras. Do officers wear their body cameras on their chest, where when they raise their arms, it's somewhat covered up?
I'll step away and show you. It'd be easier if I actually show, but I hope you can hear me on the microphone. We went through several different iterations. There was a time where we had cameras on sunglasses. They get knocked off too easily. We had some where they were up on what's called the epaulet of the uniform. Once again, they'd be knocked off too easily. There have been times where agencies have tried about the center of the chest, but especially in situations like this, if your hands are directly out, it blocks everything. What we're doing right now, we're trying to follow best practices on the positioning, not only one where it will show the best vantage point, but also stay secured, is lower on the uniform, below the chest.
And the officer at the scene, it was the arson, I guess the arson investigator and the officer both had body cams. Were they positioned lower as you said you're moving?
Yes, about that general area, just below the chest.
Are you releasing how long the officer has been here
About 14 years.
and the arson investigator?
Would you like to answer?
You can.
About a year with the fire department, just a matter of months with the arson unit. We actually had about a decade, a little more than a decade of experience with another agency as a law enforcement officer prior to coming to the fire department.
Yeah, can I clarify that?
Please.
Yeah, so the arson investigator in question has been a member of the Fort Worth Fire Department for 6 years, been a part of the team for approximately 6 months, has a 11-year history, previous employment of in the Metroplex as a law enforcement officer, is certified to the Master Police Officer certification, and is a military veteran. So is with the city for 6+ years, on the team for approximately 6 months. Thank you.
Chief Noakes, can you just, of course, we only saw parts of the video, but just the responding to a chaotic scene, shots are being fired from multiple directions, kind of talk about the process of, you have innocent people in the area, possible, maybe hitting the wrong person. Just walk us through the risk that they're taking, but also the possible risk
Great question. And obviously, the first risk when they arrive is they don't really know what they have. It's a chaotic scene, people yelling and screaming, so they're taking a risk just going in to begin with. What I did like seeing on the video was the officer was approaching slowly, trying to gauge what he had, trying to evaluate the situation, and not until he heard a gunshot did he move faster. And he didn't move away. He didn't try to run from the scene. He tried to advance because he believed, I think, that someone could be in danger. When you get on the scene, you're right. If there are a lot of people, one thing we have to consider is what's, as it's called, the backdrop. What is beyond what you may be shooting at? What other risk factors may there be to anyone else that's in the area? And quite frankly, the officers have to make those decisions oftentimes in a matter of seconds or a split second to make sure they do the best they can to preserve life, to protect everyone there the best they can.
And Chief, another ballistics question. Later that afternoon, your crime scene investigators returned because 3 bullet holes were found in 2 of the houses across the other side of 32nd, and some additional shell casings were found there. Do we know whose gun those bullets came from that entered those homes?
Not at this point.
The
Have you all-
families of the victims have been, or the 2 men shot have been asking for accountability, wanting to see the body cam footage. How are you planning to communicate with them at all to assure that that happens?
Well, one thing is the release we're doing now, showing this body camera footage. Again, coming out without all of the answers can be uncomfortable because we want to be able to answer all the questions that may be out there when we release the video. But we also know that there are those out there, including the family, that are demanding to see it. And we have said as a department that we're going to be transparent and that we will get the video out as soon as we can. And that's what we're doing today. What I would say to the family is we're praying for them, for their loss, but also that we are going to conduct a very thorough investigation. And we can definitely meet with them to discuss the results of that investigation and answer any questions they have. We take one more if anyone has one.
Can you describe the work that you're doing, how you go about untangling who fired which shot? You talk about the ballistics and whatnot. What goes into trying to figure out who shot who?
We've got a lot of very well-trained, highly educated people dealing with that, from our detectives who will be conducting interviews with those who may have seen positions of people when the shots were fired, but also when it comes to our crime lab and those who are doing the ballistics analysis to determine which rounds may have come from which gun. It can be a long process. There's a lot of scientific work that goes on along with the investigative work, but it's worth it to find out as I said before, the accurate picture of what occurred. Thank you all for coming out today.